Hey, this is Jim McDonald. Welcome to episode 200 of the PowerCast. I feel like there ought to be balloons or confetti or something, but we don't really have any of that here. Anyway, our guest for this episode is Jason Khalipa. Jason is making his third appearance on the program. He is one of our favorite guests of all time and just one of our favorite guys too. And I'll tell you why. He is a successful athlete, having won the CrossFit Games. He is a successful businessman as owner of NorCal Fitness. He is always curious, always wants to learn, and his as many reps as possible approach to both fitness and business have gotten him really far. And he's just a good dude. He's just a great guy, a warm person, concerned about other people, just a great dude. Anyway, it was awesome to have him in and to decide to use this as episode 200. So the issue with episode 200, however, is that there were 3 instances along the way where we reran previous interviews, previous shows because of scheduling conflicts or emergencies or whatever. So here's what we're going to do to lengthen this whole celebration extravaganza. Next week, we've got Stone Cold Steve Austin, which we recorded in LA a few weeks ago. And then following that, Kelly Starrett and the Fat Owl himself, Matt Vincent. And then following that, probably C.T. Fletcher. I think C.T. Fletcher. Anyway, we wanted to make this this celebration special for everybody, so we loaded it up with some awesome guests that we love and that we know that you love as well. Speaking of things that you will love, Compex USA is offering for giveaway to one of our trusty, dedicated listeners a Sport Elite model Compex muscle stim unit that is a $550 retail unit. Here's what you have to do to enter. You need to go to Instagram. You need to like at Mark Bell's PowerCast and at Compex USA. And then on the post for this episode, which is episode 200, you want to tag 3 of your friends. And hopefully they tag 3 friends as well, as many people as possible entering to try to win this particular awesome device. So we'll be announcing that the following week, so you want to get on this as soon as the post goes up. Do not post on other posts because those will not count. You're looking for the Instagram post for episode 200. Please like and share this episode with your friends. We definitely appreciate that, and that's how this show has grown over the past 3.5 years, and we appreciate you listening and watching the show. We'll be back next week with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Support for episode 200 of the PowerCast comes from these fine sponsors. Movement Watches. Go to MVMTWatches.com/PowerCast for 15% off your entire order plus free shipping. 8-Man Apparel for people who lift heavy weights at 8manstrong.com. Compex Muscle Stim products at CompexUSA.com. Use the code PowerCast and get an additional 28% discount. HowMuchYouBench.net, home of Mark Bell's Slingshot. Bench heavy with no pain with Mark Bell's Slingshot. Bodybuilding.com, the world's largest fitness website and supplement store. Bodybuilding.com has free plans for every fitness level. Visit bodybuilding.com today to become your best self. And Rapid Reboot. Check out what Mark and I have to say about them. Okay, we are proud to announce our new sponsor, Rapid Reboot. Rapid Reboot Recovery System is a boot system that improves circulation, flushes toxins and lactic acid, and reduces swelling, stiffness, and soreness. This makes the boots ideal for warm-up and post-training. You got a chance to try them, right?
Oh, they're outstanding. Yeah, having put him on after a really hard leg workout was perfect. My legs were killing me from some 20s I've been doing lately, 20 rep squats from Stan Efforting. Thanks a lot, buddy. Been getting killed by that, but it's really easy to use. You slide into them, you zip them up, you cinch them down, and you're ready to go. Now there's so many different ways that you can recover from your workouts. You can go in and you could do some rep work and get some blood flow, and you can for leg training, you can ride a stationary bike or do something like that, and that can be really effective. But the Rapid Reboot does the work for you. You just put it on, you let the air pump in there. It starts down by your feet, and kind of almost feels like it's suffocating and squeezing and compressing in a very good way. All of your muscles, all your ligaments, tendons, tissues works its way all the way up your thighs.
So it moves. It's the sensation moves up your leg.
It feels like it's moving up your legs, and it feels awesome. It's hard to really describe. It's something that people really need to try. I know you tried it, but it's probably impossible for you to keep it cinched over those giant calves of yours.
Yeah. I would think that this would be a good product for, I know a lot of our audience are trainers, and being able to offer something like this to clients would probably be a big differentiator. It's not the cheapest thing that anybody's ever going to buy for their own recovery,
right?
But if you can afford it, obviously it's a great advantage, and if you can offer it to clients, even more so, I think.
When I was wearing it the other day, I was just laying down. The Rapid Reboot was doing all the work for me, and I was just sitting there texting, signing slingshots, doing work while the thing was on. And anybody else who uses the product can just sit in a chair and they can watch some TV. They could read a book. It's some good downtime. It's good. It can also be some good relaxation time, which most of us don't get enough of.
Yeah, a little downtime. Exactly. Top level powerlifters, CrossFitters, and athletes use this system as a recovery tool. It's important to consider recovery just as important as it is for the work that you put in the gym. Go to rapidreboot.com/PowerCast. That's rapidreboot.com/PowerCast for 10% off your entire order.
Definitely check it out. Anything we have here on the PowerCast, we back up 100%.
Recorded live in West Sacramento, California, this is Mark Bell's PowerCast. Our very special guest for episode 200, Jason Khalipa. Standing just to the left of Jim McD, here's your host, Mark Bell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Jason Khalipa. Jason Khalipa has successfully taken over the free world. And now that you've done that, what are you going to do with it?
Boy, I don't know. You tell me. I didn't know I took over it yet.
It's awesome having Jason up here. Known him for years. And, it's great having him here at Super Training Gym. What'd you think of the gym?
Oh, man, it's really cool. I've been wanting to come up here for a while. Obviously, I live about, 2 hours away. I know you guys have came down multiple times, and I was like, man, I got to get up there. I got to get up there. And it was cool. It's exactly what I anticipated, right? You walk in the back, it's just good vibes, lots of stuff to get you really fit and really strong, and that's what I figured it would be. So it's great. I'm happy to be here.
There's so much stuff to get to for today, but let's kind of just start out talking a little bit about business and about different you have a lot of different sponsors. How do you juggle some of these things, and how did some of these things even come to be in the first place?
Well, first off, I want to start off by saying, for those of you who don't know, Mark Bell is Mark Bell came to a charity event that my wife put on.
Outstanding, by the way.
And it was a food event. Michael Mina and Aisha Curry and several other top chefs were there, and Michael Mina is a good friend of ours, and he really hooked it up. And Mark was extremely generous and put a lot of money towards helping the kids. So
let's just say I was the most generous.
Yeah, you're very, very generous. And so I want to thank you, because it's going to make a big impact on the kids fighting cancer.
Well, not only that, but I want to put some time into it as well. And you talked about going through the hospital and stuff, and that'll rip my heart out, and I'll be a big weepy baby. But I think it'd be good for me.
Yeah, I was in the hospital. What was it, like 2 days ago? We stayed over for a couple of days, and I text Mark. I was like, "Hey, man, I'm here if you want to come through."
Yeah, I keep saying that. I'm like,
and he, when he's ready for it, I'll bring him. It's a whole different world, but I think it's cool that you have an intention to be a part of it, because
it's easy. It's easy to brush things off to the side that don't have a direct impact on you. These soldiers coming back from war, and there's a lot of crazy things that are hard to wrap your brain around. Pediatric cancer, sounds like one of the worst. And so, to try to get involved with it and try to understand it a little bit better is something I feel like I need to do.
Yeah. Hey, I'm here to support. It humbles you for sure, as do many other things, right? Like lifting heavy weights.
Yeah, that's right.
So, in regards to sponsors, I think one of the things we could talk about is, for some of your listeners, they might be up-and-coming powerlifters. They might be up-and-coming CrossFit athletes. They might be up-and-coming Olympic weightlifters, whatever it may be. And, what they really need to think about and I cannot encourage this enough, is it's not about what the sponsor can do for them. It's about what can I do for the sponsor that makes me so valuable that people are prepared to spend the money to get to, to have me endorse their product. And I think a lot of times people kind of think about it as the other way around, where they have 5,000 followers on social media and they think that because of that, they deserve X, Y, and Z, right? When in reality, the question becomes, if you're a sponsor, right, and it's your company, what is this person going to do that's actually going to drive more sales than what you're paying them? And if you, as the athlete, can't convince them of that, then you have a major problem.
The math has to work.
The math has, and it blows my mind how many people don't realize that, right? Take a step back. Let's just take my gym, right? If I wanted to sponsor an ambassador, let's just say at my gym, I would ask myself, okay, how much does the ambassador want? Let's just say it's $100,000. Let's just say. Well, how many memberships does that person need to attract for me to make it worth my $100,000? Well, at minimum, $100,000 worth.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just a waste of money. And I think there's a lot of funny money that gets thrown around, a lot of these like random things, but it's not. This is not a company that's going IPO, right? This is an actual investment for your brand. And is it going to drive an ROI? And I think what happens is, and you're seeing this in sponsorship of events, sponsorships of athletes, sponsorships of different things, is maybe for a year or two, you invest and you think it's going to come back. But after a while, if you're not getting your return, you can't continue that relationship.
Sometimes people get into, or sponsors get into arrangements because they want to be associated with something and they don't necessarily think that they're going to immediately get anything out of it, but they will down the road someday. And your point is well taken. It comes around after about 2 years. You can see whether or not your money is well spent, or if it was just a nice experience and you move on.
Right. And that's a major problem for the, CrossFit market, powerlifting market, different markets, is that, one of the biggest challenges that specifically I'll speak to CrossFit is that you have these athletes who, have a social media following, have whatever, right? Who've competed and maybe placed top 10 at the CrossFit Games multiple years in a row, right? Phenomenal athletes, but sponsors are having a challenging time quantifying their value, right? There is value to be on the podium and wearing a certain brand. I get that. But outside of that, what's happening with social media is people become numb to it. And so they become numb to all these posts about different sponsors. And so the athletes really need to take a step back and say to themselves, how do I create a brand that's so valuable that people will invest into me because I could give them back that investment?
Some of these things that are happening right now were predicted by Gary Vee, who we just went and talked to. In his book, Crush It, he talks about how the news is going to be reported by individuals. And he talked about how just your local soccer mom is going to have on the back of her phone some sort of branding, from some sort of company or whatever, because they'll have a blog or they'll have a high Instagram following. Like, a lot of this stuff is happening right now. It's pretty wild to see. I'm aware that there's some apps that show you your value. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of these things or played around with them, but
Social Blue Book, Social Blade.
Yeah, I have a friend that punched in some numbers, and it came out to be that if he just made one post every day, he'd be worth $200K. And I'm like, okay, that app is fucking bullshit.
Right.
For the amount of followers you have and for what you're going to do, they're not going to ever get their return on investment. You have to be more creative than just to be able to make a post. Hey, I'm wearing the strong hat. It's got to be. It's got to be bigger than that. And you've done that in your gym with the many different things that you do. When Jim and I went down there and did the first podcast with you, you showed us all these different facilities where you're doing CrossFit type stuff all over the place. One of the businesses, they had kind of a Globo gym type setting in there. And I remember this specific story where these two guys worked together for a decade.
Oh, yeah.
And they never spoke. They barely spoke. Hey, Bill. And they knew each other's first name, and that was about the extent of it. But then you went in there and you preached CrossFit. You preached fitness to them and what it could do for their company. And you said, hey, let me put some people through some training sessions, correct?
Yep.
You put some people through some free training sessions, and you took them into a more CrossFit setting, and now these guys are like best friends.
Yeah, and the way we like to think about it is, I think it's been a shift over the years, is that before it was like the conventional gym. Then it shifted into studio class-based. So our gym was founded on class-based, right? Traditionally, it was founded on CrossFit. But now we've pivoted again into more service-based. So we're not about conventional. We're not about class-based. We're about service-based, period. We want to service whatever that may be. We currently operate a hotel in Mexico. We don't operate the hotel. We operate a fitness center in a hotel. Just to be clear, right? And, there, it's all about service, right? People come in, you want to do kettlebell swings and dumbbell thrusters? Great, we got your back, right? Yeah. You want to do the treadmill? Sure. You want to do lat pull-downs? I don't care. Let me at least add you more service, right? Teach you maybe to do 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, whatever. I want to do more than just offer you a towel and some water. And that's really where our business has shifted is it's not about classes, not about not classes. It's just about servicing people when they walk through the door, period.
Question. Go ahead. A question that's come up with us recently is like 24-hour fitness has added a lot of stuff, a lot of CrossFit looking stuff. They have turf, they have rigs, they have bumper plates, they have kettlebells, they have tires.
The beginning of the end, perhaps.
All that stuff. Like what's to keep a 24 or for 24 period to just offer money for CrossFit athletes to come in and train there and then send somebody who's, got high games potential off and they've got the 24-hour fitness branding.
Yeah, we talked about a 24-hour fitness, just, throwing some money at Matt Frazier.
Yeah.
What I mean?
And I think, throwing money at Matt Frazier, Rich Froning, whatever, will it move the needle? Yeah, maybe not, right? But what will move the needle for them is if they find top-tier coaches, right? They offer a good community, good coaching in an environment that offers amenities as well. That's where they start moving the needle. Getting
amenities
these athletes,
such as childcare and things like that. Okay,
air conditioning and
whatever. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, there's three major threats to the CrossFit industry. Number one is conventional gyms that incorporate the CrossFit. Call it whatever you want to call it. Functional training inside their studios, inside their gyms. That's a major threat, right? Because they offer all these amenities from swimming pools to basketball courts, whatever. People want those amenities and they want it for the same price, hypothetically, as a CrossFit gym down the street that offers none of that, but offers really good coaching and community.
They'll probably get it for cheaper even.
Right. So we have that. That's a major threat. Second major threat is crappy CrossFit gyms, right? That's a major threat to other CrossFit gyms because if you get buckled in all together, right, you go to one powerlifting gym, you just think powerlifting sucks, right? Let's just say.
Right.
That can negatively impact others in that area because now they might not go back and try a different gym because they had a poor experience and they buckled you all into one bucket, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent.
Right.
Sometimes people do that, right?
Just because of the branding.
Yeah, because if I go to one Starbucks, right? Well, maybe not Starbucks isn't a good analogy. If I go to one place that's a franchise, I generally think that in franchises, they run in a typical fashion, right? Most people think about CrossFit as a franchise. CrossFit is not a franchise, it's an affiliation. Therefore, you can run your business
Starbucks,
however you
McDonald's,
want.
they're all the same.
Right.
Subway, right? It's all the same.
Look, you go to a Starbucks, you go to another one. I drove up to Starbucks on my way up here, and it's going to be fairly similar to the one that I have in Los Gatos, right? Fairly similar. Whereas if you go to one CrossFit gym, it can be completely different from another one, right? And in powerlifting, I'd imagine it's similar in the sense like you might get one experience here, might get a totally different experience here. But what people don't realize is it's not a franchise. There's no basis for any of this. It's just kind of like a free market, right? Where you could do whatever you want to do, and that's fine. But if you're the cream of your industry, by definition, everything else will pull your branding down. You need to be aware of that. That's all.
You kind of mentioned like internally. So like it matters what happens inside the walls of that 24-hour fitness if they're going to be successful with CrossFit. Why do you feel so strongly about that in terms of the coaching and the type of help that the members get?
Yeah, I mean, I think, having Matt Frazier, this is total hypothetical.
Yeah.
But I mean,
shout out, Matt.
Yeah.
24-hour fitness, like, who's Matt Frazier? Yeah. Matt Frazier's like, why am I working out at 24-hour fitness?
Having him like, being sponsored by 24-hour fitness, it's cool. It might grow. But at the end of the day, the reason why people go to CrossFit gyms is because they fall in love with the community, the culture, and the excellent coaching, period. Now, if you could take that community coaching and excellent atmosphere and service-based, and you could place that inside of a conventional gym market, that becomes a legitimate threat to an affiliate down the street. It just does. And but currently that hasn't been offered because the coaching quality and the community feel hasn't been appropriately placed inside these places that I'm aware of. But look, if you're a CrossFit gym owner right now and you don't realize there's conventional gyms that they are seeing what's going on. No one's blind to functional fitness. No one's blind to it. They just haven't quite figured out how to implement it into their space. Once you do, it's gonna be challenging for a lot of people. It's gonna totally change things.
Backing up a little bit to the sponsorship type thing, what I noticed right away about the different setups that you had, each place that we went to, whether it was your own or it was Western Digital, I believe is one of the places, right? This multi-billion-dollar company. Didn't matter which place we walked into. There was Rogue rigs, Reebok shoes. There was a lot of stuff going on with a lot of the sponsors that you have. So that's your way of paying your sponsors back. That's way different than most people think of, right?
Yeah. So, when I got into the sport in 2008, I won the CrossFit Games. I won a whopping, I think, $1,500. Right?
Yeah, there you
My
go.
first sponsorship was with Rogue, and I think it was like for $1,000, something like that, right? And
Rolling.
I'm rolling. So when I did this, I had to recognize, man, I need to make sure I have another source of income, because surely I'm not going to make money competing in CrossFit. Like, I never even thought that was even a thing back then, right? I was just like, all right, so I opened up the gym. Then as the gym grew, I started to recognize, man, I'm growing this community of people, and that in return adds value for my sponsors, right? So now, we have 5,000 active members in our gym, right? That is a direct market for example, Reebok, right? And then we open up these new gyms. We have 24 locations, and we put Rogue in them. That's instantly revenue for Rogue going into our gyms, as an example, right?
Right.
And so, what I would ask people to think about is step aside from social media for a second and think about tangible items. Let's not talk about,
How can we step away from social media?
Well, yeah. Just think about like Twitter getting
impossible.
Twitter gets this $1 billion evaluation, whatever it gets, right? But it's actually not making any money. Let's just say, let's use them as an example. That's the same thing. It's like being, having followers on social media is like being rich in Monopoly. But if you could find a way to create value, that's great. But imagine if you're doing that simultaneously with also having legitimate revenue streams coming in, right? Like a legitimate gym. You have a gym with members that are tangible items that are generating revenue that you could then show value for your sponsors. One of the things I was talking to one of the gentlemen from a sponsor recently, and he was saying, I'm having a tough time giving this guy this much money. He has 70 members. He's in the middle of nowhere. He has 30 online members. So his total reach is 100 members.
Right.
Yeah, his social media might have 100,000 followers, but what are the likelihood of them actually purchasing products, right? Whereas his members, there's a much higher likelihood.
Right.
He's got to get more known locally rather than internationally or whatever it might be.
Or he needs to establish what he is as a subject material expert and start hosting seminars. If I was a CrossFit Games athlete right now, what I would solely focus on is, okay, I'm building my microphone. My microphone is being grown through my competitive abilities, right? And now what I want to do is isolate a specific area where I'm an expert in, okay? I'll use China Cho as an example. She was recently up here. She's awesome. I love her to death. Freddie put me through my first ever CrossFit workout, but I'll use her as an example. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a cool connection right there.
Yeah. So China swam for San Jose State. Okay. And out of all the CrossFit athletes that I'm aware of, okay, she is the most specialized in swimming. Now, again, I don't know if that's a fact, but in my opinion,
close
right?
enough, yeah.
So imagine if she started a swim only, workout of the day, right? Where she created her own online platform where it was swim workouts. And she's looked at as a subject material expert because she's established herself with a microphone in CrossFit, but she has a background of legitimacy in swimming. She's an example of someone who could establish that lane and actually make money from it, right? Lucas Parker, I think he goes around and does like these specialty classes at different places and gets paid for it. That's the way where you start establishing yourself and actually generating income.
So you got to figure out a way to make money outside of your facility.
Yeah, and establish yourself as a subject material expert in something. Instead of just putting up pictures of your butt, which is fine, right? Put up a picture of your butt, but then also say, so this picture of my butt, but let me tell you how, let me tell you about, whatever, how to, establish yourself as a higher knowledge base, because now people are gathering information from you versus seeing like this, kind of like you're getting them on a deeper level. Right? You're getting them on a deeper level than just looking out on the surface level.
I think that there's a dissonance that develops among people who follow people who don't have anything behind their butt on social media, and people expect that there's more coming from that person. They have a higher level of expertise or whatever,
right.
And when they don't, that's when they leave them. That and when they find out that they're just inauthentic,
right?
Yeah,
and I think social media is. I was listening to Tim Ferriss. I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast, and it was really interesting to me because one of the things he said was that he thinks maybe the ability to have creative content in the future is going to be a challenge. And here's the reason why. He said some of these artists put out a cover for their new album,
right.
And they look for total likes to determine if they which one they'll go with, right? And what he gathered from that was that in first glance, that makes sense, right? Whichever one's liked the most, let's put it out. But then what he gathered is that most of your favorite albums, you didn't necessarily like it in the beginning, but you loved it after listening to it 2 or 3 times, right? And that was one of the things that I gathered from him on his podcast. I thought was really mind-boggling to me. He says, I try and put out this once a week, like he does a blog post like once every week or 2. And what his goal is on those blog posts is not to have every one of them liked by everybody. He wants some people to look at them and not necessarily like it, but once a month, he wants them to love it, be so bought into how amazing it is that now it's deeper connection to Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
There's a huge difference between that. I posted a picture from the Arnold Classic, and a guy came up to me, and he was, almost in tears. He's talking about how he lost 100 pounds from some of the videos, some of the content we put out here on the podcast, as well as just some of the stuff I put on my YouTube. And I posted a picture with him, and it did okay, like likes wise and things like that. But that's not why I posted it up. That's something that guy will remember forever, and that's probably going to help him with momentum. All of his friends are talking about it. Whereas if it's somebody famous in the fitness industry, if I take a picture with Bradley Martin, who's really popular in the fitness industry, and I tag him and stuff, he's not going to really. We are friends and stuff, but he's not going to really care about it.
Right.
It's not going to have the same impact. So while it might have more likes, you might get more traction, and you might get more just authenticity.
That's right.
Off of that post, off of like posting something that you're my point was I was very touched by that. That was one of the coolest things I did all weekend, and I truly meant it, because we got Brian Shaw, who's 6'8", 450 pounds, winning the world's strongest man, and all these other cool things are happening. But that guy had a big impact on me. When he started getting choked up, I started getting choked up. I'm like, fuck, man, that's why I make these videos. That's what
right.
this is for.
And that's a real connection.
Yeah.
And then you do it for the right reasons, right? And then your followers then realize you're authentic in your delivery, right? You're not just out here trying to, you're trying to share content to improve people's lives, right? And the more we can share it through social, right? And for me, one of the things that's really important to me on social media is to share perspective that, hey, you know what? Life is okay. Like there's a lot of people in this world that are suffering in many different ways. And I've seen it firsthand in the hospital. But we can still keep a positive attitude every day. And so can you. Because there's so much negativity that gets flown around. Right. Let's start preaching more positive.
And then there's those little things that you think are so negative that are crushing your world, like your elbow hurts or your shoulder hurts and you can't train. And it's like, well, let me get a little bit better perspective on this. I'm still healthy. Right. Everybody around me is still doing okay, and we can still work on moving forward. Things ain't that bad.
That's right. That's right.
Something you were talking about just a minute ago about, listening to all these different podcasts. Is that a big priority to you to continue your education?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I go up to, I travel to San Francisco because we have a new location up there. And when I'm on my way at 4 in the mornings, a lot of the times, I have no one to talk to. I have nothing to do. So I'm just, hey, I'm going to listen to some podcasts. And, for me, I want to continuously educate myself and be inspired and motivated by others who have either achieved what I want to achieve, right? Or who I believe I could pick a piece of and then take on with me. I read a lot. I haven't really found too many books recently that have really inspired me as much as I would like. I think a lot of them are very fluffy and not what I've realized through business. And so, that's one thing. But I think some of the podcasts are really cool, because what I'll do is there's this new on NPR, there's a new one called How I Built This. And it's very intriguing to me because what it is it's how people built their business. Like I learned about Cliff Bar, right? I didn't know that it was named after his dad, right? And these are different things, but I want to listen to their stories because as a business owner.
That's a huge company right there. Yeah.
As a young entrepreneur and having these things, if I could listen to some of the things that they learned along the way, right? That's going to help me in our business. For example, talking to some people about partnership agreements, right? That in itself, just by having a good conversation, could maybe alleviate me from having a problem like that in the future if I just listen to other people's stories about that.
They already went through a lot of it.
They already went through it.
And when you think about like Cliff Bar or Nike or Reebok or any of these big companies, I think sometimes there's a detachment, and you forget that they started somewhere as well.
Right.
And you forget that they may have started their hustle in a very similar way.
Yeah.
What do you think is one of the most valuable lessons you learned in business that you had to learn the hard way?
Oh, man, that's a good question. Well, I think the biggest thing is learning, managing people, right? Finding good people to be on your team is not easy. And once you find them, you need to properly motivate them and learn how to manage people differently. I think one of the things I've had a tough time with is learning how to manage people. Because I'm not like a gifted, like right off the bat manager. I've had to work on it. Because to me, it's like I'm so internally motivated that I'm just going to go out there and just get the job done, right?
We haven't noticed.
But there's other people, right, who need to be not handheld, but like given guidance and direction on a constant basis. And for many years, I didn't do any of that. And now, thankfully, we've hired people in our organization who are good at those things, right? But that's one of the biggest things I've learned is that each person has to be managed a little bit differently, some less, some more. And I always thought it was just kind of like the way I liked it. But some people want more management. They want more guidance and direction. That was a big thing that I've had to take away over the last couple of years. And then, on top of that, one of the things I like to tell people is like, you got to ask yourself what your competitive advantage is and how are you going to win? One of the things I've learned over the years is like, before we go into anything, I'm just asking myself, how am I going to win? Like an example would be take powerlifting. How are you going to win? You're going to earn the confidence to win by busting your ass every day in the gym and knowing that there's no one else out there that's putting in the work you are. So when you get there, you're going to put up a better bench press than other people, as an example. And looking at the CrossFit Games, it's like I'm putting myself in a position to win by doing X, Y, and Z. And in business, I think before we go into anything, I'm going to ask myself, what's my competitive advantage and how am I going to win? And if I can't win, I don't even want to play. Like I don't even want to, because in business, the negative side is that you're going to lose a lot of money and hurt feelings and whatever. And that's something I've learned over the years is not to get into areas that I don't think I have a competitive advantage in.
You're transitioning out of competition in terms of CrossFit, correct?
Yep.
What's that transition been like for you?
Well, I mean, the transition's been interesting. I mean, I've kind of transitioned my mindset from competing in the sport of CrossFit to competing in the sport of business in terms of Mark Cuban would say. And I think the sport of business gets me fired up, because there's someone coming after us every day. I know there's people in our industry who are like, I want to get that guy. And I don't know who they are. I don't know where they're from, but they're thinking about it, right? And so it's kind of like invigorating in that sense. But, transitioning out has just been something that's needed to happen. I tried competing the Open again this year, and I did work on number 1, and work on number 2 comes up, and I'm in the hospital with my daughter for 3 days while it's supposed to be getting done. And I sat there and reflected. I'm like, do I really want to leave the hospital right now to go do this workout to submit my score in time? Or am I going to stay here with my family and focus on what needs to get done?
Right.
And the answer was simple, right? Like in life, I use this term called AMRAP Mentality, where we identify our focus, we work hard at it, and then we switch gears. And every now and then you got to reevaluate those priorities or those focuses. And for me, that's exactly what happened in my competitive career is that when my daughter got sick, I had to reevaluate my priorities. And going into the, this season, I reevaluated again. I was like, hey, I'm going to do the Open. Let's have fun with it. But when I'm in the hospital again, I had to reevaluate. It's just not a priority and not a focus of mine. And I didn't want to get distracted by it.
I haven't read a lot of business books. I don't read that much in general, but I would imagine that the AMRAP mentality did not come from a business book.
No, it's funny.
Did you go to business school or?
Yeah, so I went to business school. I went to Santa Cruz University. I got my degree in business management, and AMRAP mentality is actually something we're working on to put out to the public. It's been a long time in the making, but it's just a mindset that I really believe can allow people to be successful in many facets of what they're doing. And in AMRAP, if people don't know, it's like it's as many rounds or reps as possible. I mean, think about if you're a powerlifter, how many bench press can you do in a minute at 135, right? Yeah. And if you're a CrossFitter, it's how many calories you can row. But while you're doing it, you're only focused on what you're doing. If you're benching 135 for max reps in a minute, you're not going to stop and answer your phone, right? You're not going to stop to do these different things. And like here we are podcasting. I'm not going to be doing other stuff because I'm here with you guys. And I think that's what's lacking this day and age is a lot of focus and direction because of so many different distractions going on. And that's kind of what the premise of AMRAP mentality is.
That's interesting because obviously focus is part of it. Part of it is that that you're going to be pushing failure the whole time with an AMRAP. You're going to come up on feeling like there isn't any more. Yeah. And a lot of people have trouble with that in the business world. They don't want to contemplate if things go wrong or if you just run out of your own talent or your own energy or whatever. I mean, that's pretty powerful, really.
Yeah, and so I equate it to a bike. And on a bike, you have to identify your focus. And if you're not focused, you're going to fall over, right? Right. On a bike, you have to work hard. If you're not pedaling, you're not going to go anywhere, right? And then on a bike, if you're going uphill or downhill, you need to switch gears based on the terrain. And so it's like life, right? You identify your focus, you work hard at it, and then every now and then you're switching gears, right? So right now I'm here with you, then I'm going to go home and I'm going to be with my family and I'm going to switch a gear, right?
Right.
And I think, for many years I didn't switch gears as well as I wanted to. The problem is here I am, I'm so mentally focused on competing that, I'm going to dinner with my wife and I'm not focusing on that relationship. I'm not focusing on that. I'm too distracted. And I think that happens a lot with kids.
Thinking about your rope climb.
That's right. And it's happened to me before, and I'm not the best at it, but I'm getting better. I'm getting better at trying to be more quality time, more AMRAPing with the kids than being focused on other stuff. And I think it's challenging. It is because, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I have this huge debate in my head. Like, are we more productive today than we were 20 years ago or less productive? And I don't know what the answer is because 20 years ago, you didn't have all these distractions at home.
I'll give you my answer.
Like, let's just say you come into the gym, right? When you're in the gym and you're at the office, whatever, you're working, right? But when you're at home, you're with the kids, you're at home. You can't have any distractions because the only thing you have is mail to open up or whatever it is, right? Nowadays, it's so easy to get contacted, right? That it makes it challenging.
My grandfather built his own house. My grandfather built his own car, and my dad had a house at the age of like 21 or 22. I didn't have a house. I don't know how to fucking build a house.
Right.
I certainly don't know how to build a car, even fucking work on a car.
Neither do I.
I think in a lot of ways we're getting worse. Like we're getting less productive, and I think that some of those things of being able to build stuff and use your hands and like who the fuck knows what the future's bringing for us. We might need to revert back to that, I think, at some point with these fucking robots that are getting built and all the craziness.
Going into McDonald's, like robots in McDonald's. I mean, that's talk about job security. That's tough for those people.
There's some wild shit. I think Judgment Day is a lot closer than.
I mean, and that's something I think about too, right? Is like in our industry, is the internet going to take us over, right? I mean, and thankfully, I think we're in an industry where I think for at least right now, there still needs to be that personal connection, right? Where you need to, you need to be in a group environment, like, but you look at some of these other industries, like Hollywood Video was at the, it was cracking. Now they're gone.
Blockbuster.
Right? And what's to say that the internet can't, I mean, you look at these poor cashiers at McDonald's, they're gonna be taken over by robots. And the fact of the matter is, from a business perspective, it's more streamlined. They're probably gonna get the same level of service when people walk in the door. They're not gonna worry about as much as expenses, right? Especially when hourly wages go up, all these different things. So at least for fitness, for at least right now, we're okay.
It's still high touch enough, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
I saw the movie Logan last night with my son, and they had self-driving trucks on there.
Oh.
And I think like all that kind of stuff is.
Well, those are supposed to be the first thing, I think, because long haul
sounds
truckers.
like the worst idea though.
A long haul trucker is a terrible job, and staying awake, and they're not supposed to take
maybe they need
stimulants, but they still do.
Maybe they need their own road. I don't know.
I don't know. That's a good possibility too. I don't know how all of that got integrated into the regular highway system, but yeah, that's definitely going to be first.
What are some things that you have to try to make yourself aware of, or maybe cut out to make sure that you are able to get some balance between work and between your kids and between, like, people don't always realize that, having kids isn't just having kids. It's, you have to have a relationship with, you have two children. You have to have a relationship with both kids at the same time. You have to have a relationship with the kid individually on their own time with just with dad
and your wife.
You have the relationship with your wife, and then your wife has to manage those other relationships as well, because it's important that the kids get mommy time and everything like that. How do you Well,
I think the first step is it's a family event, right? And so our entire family is bought in on our relationship being solid. So my mom and dad will watch my son on Saturday night. My mother-in-law comes over and so my mother-in-law comes over every day. It's a very family environment, right? Where I could have time with my wife on Saturday nights to go out to dinner, right? Like this last week we were in San Francisco, and then we allocate time accordingly. Like
our wives wore the same dress, by the way, to the auction dinner.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, the thing about it is I think it's about setting up coordinating time. So like for me, I live a kind of interesting lifestyle, and but I like to be home at 5:30 to have dinner with the kids. For many years, I didn't do that, but I didn't have kids. For many years, I worked all the time because 5:30 at night is key time inside of a gym.
Right.
But now, because of where I'm at, my key time is more of a 9 to 5 type of job because I'm more corporate, more growing the business, etc. So I like to have dinner. And then after dinner, I'll be on the internet until late at night. kind of researching, answering back emails, doing things like that. But when I'm at home with the kids for dinner, then I like to spend some time with them. So I think what it is delegating appropriate times and then using your family to support you along that journey.
Are you pretty scheduled? Do you have a schedule that you lay out for yourself once a week or every day? Or
Yeah, probably not as much as I'd like to be, just because sometimes with the company, I think it would be easier because I could be in more of these meetings. But, you know, in general, I like to work out in the morning. I like to spend some time early in the morning with the kids, and then, you know, they'll go off to school. I'll go to work. And then I like to be home for dinner, and then I like to hang out with them until like 7:30, 8 o'clock when they go to bed, and then I'll be on the computer for a while after that.
I said to some of your coaches, I said, I think Jason needs a personal assistant. I was like, he tells me the same story quite often. And the second I said that, they were like, yes, like he does. He needs an assistant. Is that anything that might be in the works?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's tough, man, because I like being engaged. I like talking. I like you know, representing myself, right?
Right.
We have a lot of help though, and we've hired some great people, and so it's really helped out. But the business has grown a lot, and so as it grows, it becomes more challenging to kind of manage, and that's the tough part.
How do you get a good team together? Do you do it by firing everybody all the time, or do you do it by hiring the right?
No, just fire people. You know, they say hire slow, fire fast, but we have not done a good job of that. You know, I think when you know someone's not right for the team, you have an obligation to them and yourself to kind of let them go. That's harder than it sounds. But what we're really trying to do is just not have an ego about it and hire the best people we can. And look around the industry and say, okay, where are our areas, you know, where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses, where are our opportunities, where are our threats? And you got to be real with yourself, right? You got to be real that, hey, this is a legitimate threat. We need to hire someone who can help us with that area because we're not very good at X, Y, and Z. You know, in our industry, for example, coaching is a key thing, right? Coaching, making sure we have quality across all locations, that's a critical piece. And so moving forward, we need to make sure that's dialed in. And for a while, it used to be finance. So 3-4 years ago, you know, we hired a new CFO who really helped us because I didn't know how much money we were making. I didn't know how much money we were spending, right? The only reason why I knew we were making money is because the bank account was going the right direction. And so I knew that when I was staying up at night freaking out about it, we had to hire someone on for that position. And now we're in that similar case about other things in the business. Just because of the scale we've grown, maintaining quality is so important to me that we need to make sure we're hiring up to prepare for that.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor, Movement Watches. So we're about 200 episodes into this thing.
What?
Yeah, I know. And we started this thing back with as little equipment as we could.
You started it.
I started it.
This is all your fault.
All right, all my fault. That's correct.
Buddy.
I did start it.
You got to take responsibility. You got us into this mess.
I did get us into this mess. But we started sort of without sponsors. I mean, not specific sponsors. We had
just ourselves, basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. We had a little bit of support from people who were like supporting your media in general, but we didn't really have any sponsors.
That was a long time ago, and that was when we were in the closet.
That was when we were back in the closet. Yes, we literally did this show in the dark. Pretty much, I had to bring a lamp because
shot in the dark.
Shot in the dark. Yes.
Yeah.
And we didn't do video, and
smelled in there too,
it did smell in there, yeah. And sometimes the big door would be open. You could hear Interstate 5 outside.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to those, you go back to those early recordings. But that's kind of how Movement started out too. They were broke college kids who decided they wanted to have nice watches, and they went about finding a way to have them made.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people don't, they might not realize is that a lot of people just start. Like, how do you make a watch? They probably didn't know.
Yeah. Where do watches come from? How do they come together?
Where do we get the parts? How do we get it all together?
Yeah, and then they called it Movement, as we talked about before. That's what the inside of a watch is. And then MVMT is, I guess, easier to remember, and distinct, and probably something you can patent, which is a thing, right, or trademark, right?
Yeah. You have to be able to keep it proprietary,
right?
In some sort of way, but. I think it's great. They started out in the garage and started out grassroots, just like a lot of other big companies. I think Apple started that way.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's totally in the garage. Yeah.
Right.
Movement watches start at just about $95, which is a pretty good deal, and they're very expensive looking watches. They're obviously
they look great.
Yeah, I mean you don't have to spend a fortune on it to look good. They've sold over 1 million watches in over 160 countries.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, you can get 15% off today with free shipping and free returns by going to mvmtwatches.com/powercast. Which you guys should do that because we like having sponsors, and the way that you keep sponsors is that your audience actually buys things from the sponsors.
You got to stop going around looking so cheap.
Exactly.
You got to fancy up your wardrobe. You got to look like a meathead millionaire, and this is the way to do it.
Go to movementwatches.com/powercast and join the movement.
Indeed. Do you look at numbers?
Yeah, now I do. Yeah, like yesterday I went over, we go over monthly commercial, monthly corporate numbers. We go over quarterly, and then obviously we have our annual P&L.
What's the difference? Commercial, corporate, what's the difference?
So on the commercial side, those are like open to the public. So it's like our regular gyms. We have 7 of those, right? And then on the corporate side, we have another, 15 of those. And so corporate side of the house is managed by
23 gyms.
23. Corporate side of the house is managed by a woman named Janet. She's great. Commercial side of the house is managed by a gentleman named Brett. And then they roll up in Matt Walker, and then Matt, and then myself. So it's kind of a nice flow because we kind of segment the business that way. And then, sponsorship's kind of outside the scope.
So out of the 23 gyms, I'm sure there's a lot of moving parts with all that. There's probably a lot of employees at those actual gyms. But when I went and visited you, it didn't seem like you had like 700 people working for you or anything.
No.
You have how many employees?
Gary V's 750.
Yeah.
We have 150.
Okay.
We have 150 employees, a lot of which are full time, right? And
does that include the coaches and things like that too?
Yeah.
Right.
So we have like I don't know, our G&A
might be half and half, 50-50
What?
between coaches and the people that are work in your office, or
no
people that are in your office.
We have like 20 people working in the office,
okay.
if that, and then the rest is all coaches. Because our priority is the product on the floor. So I'd rather double staff coaches than have 6 admins.
Right.
And so for us, it's been challenging to find good. The biggest problem in our industry is offering trajectory for people and making sure they could be a full-time coach. And that's a pride thing that I have, is that I don't ever want to be the guy where the CEO is making $1 million and your head coach is making nothing.
Right.
And so I don't want people to say, oh, I work for Google and I'm part-time coach here. I want them to say, hey, I'm an NC Fit coach, and I take pride in it. And therefore, we had to make sure the salaries were appropriate to at least get them in the door and live off of. I mean, in the Bay Area, it's expensive to live.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what we've really been working on, is trying to create trajectory for those coaches. I think in our industry, it's always been like, do a trade out. Oh, you get $20 a class. But that's not a sustainable living for these people who want to be able to be a professional coach.
Do you have to manage any of the things that your coaches do, since they're employed by you and since they're making good money, it sounds like?
Yeah.
Do you have to have your
not where I want them to be? But
depending. Yeah,
better than most, but not where I want them to be. Let's put that.
Depending on what kind of work they're putting in, I guess. But like, are there any conflicts of interest? Like if somebody works for you, but they also train somebody at a 24-hour fitness or something like that?
We work on that in different cases. Like, for example, for me, we have this thing where, if you want to bring in personal training clients, it's perfectly fine. I think they pay us a $10 rental fee of the space, right? We're not trying to muddle in that. Like, as long as they're getting their job done and they hit certain metrics that we need to get done, if they can make more money, more power to them, you know? And I think it's really important, to have different legs to your table and to find ways to create income streams and to grow as a human being. I mean, I think it's really important. And there's some of the people on the team who are out there trying to actively do that, and there's some that are just okay with not doing that, and that's on them. That's up to them.
So you're a really competitive person. We've established that already. And is the business enough to satisfy that need, or is there going to be a day where you go, God, I really wish I was still competing in CrossFit? Because I watched this guy say, I'm not going to compete anymore in powerlifting, and then he reached the point where he just couldn't stay away anymore, and then came back.
Yeah. I think for me at this point, unlike, and not to say powerlifting isn't this way, but the CrossFit has just changed so much, right? When I got into it, it required X amount of hours a day, whatever, right? Then as the years go on, so you figure I won in 08 and I took second and 13 and third and 14, right? In the world. Mm. So that's a long span. So I was in it for a long way. And over the years, right, the demands increased, but so did the demands of my business and my family, right? And so now it's at a point where I'm looking at some of these guys and, if you're not training 4 or 5 hours a day, you just can't be competitive. And so my position, back to the way I feel about business, is if I don't feel like I have a competitive advantage, if I don't feel like I could win, I don't even want to do it.
Yeah.
And now, can I still go in there and maintain my fitness? Did I still go in the garage this morning and crush myself? Of course, right? But that's different than putting yourself out there and saying, hey, I want to go win this event, because you have to, again, prioritize yourself. And I don't see myself ever being in a position again to prioritize, winning the CrossFit Games over the other things I'm doing.
The guys that you were competitive against, or people that you would be competitive against now if you were still competing, do you see them differently now that you know you're not going to go head to head with them? Do you have a different appreciation for them as athletes, or?
No, I mean, I think for me, I've always, it's always been good vibes with everybody. I do think though that I have, after talking to them more often, now that I'm kind of taking a step back, I realize that there's more in my life that I want to pursue than just the CrossFit space, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things I've realized, is that when we have conversations, I want to talk about family, I want to talk about other things, I want to talk about business, I want to talk about this. I don't necessarily just want to talk about thrusters and burpees, right, all the time. Right. And it's not to say that that isn't something I want to talk about, but I want to have other facets of the life to discuss.
Who are you a fan of?
In the sport?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a Ben Smith fan, of course. A lot of the guys, I know them really well, but, the Scott Pancheks, the Ben Smiths, a lot
what
of the guys.
What do you like about Ben Smith in particular?
What I like about him? He's that silent assassin, he's just a low-key dude. Yeah. From Chesapeake, Virginia, right? Just low key
not
guy.
Not crazy jacked or nothing.
No, not crazy jacked. Super deceiving. But he's also, he's 4-time podium finisher.
Yeah.
And I think that I like that about him, is that he's silent but he's deadly. And he's really good at his craft. And we'll see how many more years he can stay at the top.
How do you pitch some of these big companies on fitness? Like we talked a little earlier about Western Digital, but that's not where it ends. You've done stuff with Twitter and a bunch of other gigantic companies. How did some of that get started?
I mean, at the end of the day, what I started to realize is that, like you're alluding to earlier, is that there's bonds that are fostered through group-based training. There just is, right? There's bonds that are created on the gym floor of your powerlifting gym. And why can't we take those bonds and then transfer them into a corporate space? That was the question. And so now with service-based fitness, I feel like that's the next step, right? Where you have a commercial gym, right? Conventional equipment. And you also have group-based, all in one setting, but you have someone who's servicing them. And that's how I make the connections is, right now we're doing an active, sales and marketing strategy. I mean, we're cold calling people. We're out on the floor. We're making it happen really? Because we believe at this point right now, we are the industry leader in what we're doing for what our niche, right? And, I think that now we have an obligation for 2017 is to, start marketing, start letting people know what we're doing,
So it's a little bit easier now though, because you've already infiltrated we've worked with these guys and they got this result, and we worked with those guys and they got this result, and so on, right?
Here's what I've done at GoPro. Here's what we've done at Western Digital. Here's what we've done at Silver Springs Networks. Oh, have you you have a virtual platform? That's what we've done at Michael Mina Group, right? These are, so what's nice is that it's almost like this snowball effect, whereas once you get one or two, then you can kind of start moving from there.
What's the virtual platform? Is there a Jason Khalipa hologram that shows up in your living room or something?
Yeah, basically,
like
I just do curls with you. No, I mean, essentially, it's just like a on-demand workout. Right. And the way I like to do that is, like, if you have a TV in a conference room and, your HQ has a gym, but your other places don't, it's a way to provide them a service and not make them feel like they're getting left out because they're not part of HQ, right?
Gotcha.
And that's the theory.
What was the first place that you pitched some of these ideas to?
So first one was CH Reynolds. It's here in Milpitas, California, and I just went over there and I was like, "Look, I know we can do this." Blah blah blah. And they had 40 employees at the time, and I just went there twice a week at 6 a.m. and I coached the classes. Started off with 2 people, ended up getting on average about 20, right, in this conference room, big conference room. And I would bring kettlebells and wall balls and just started it there. And what that was,
conference room, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
wall balls in the conference room.
But that's a way that you could, connect the employees. Now you're having accounting meet with finance, meeting with this, meeting with that. So that was a really cool thing, and I think that's an area of our business that I'm really fascinated by, because I think there's just, I believe that right now the current corporate wellness space is kind of like taxis, and I believe we're Uber. We're going to service better, deliver better, and make it easier for people, right? And those are just analogies, but
gotcha.
Point being is that I believe that there's an opportunity there, and we need to go after it.
We have a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are always wondering about how to make money. I mean, it seems like your business is, obviously you have a long history of business. You understand business very well. maybe it's something you learned at a young age, and maybe it's something through school and combination of experiences and so on. But it sounds like the main source of all your success has been just hustle.
Yeah.
Like you just went into that place. I mean, you called them, or did you know somebody, or you just what?
It's all cold call. I mean, I'm telling you, like, you know, people love to say like, oh, work hard. It's like, well, what do you really mean by work hard? What does work hard mean? And what working hard to me is, and I just thought about this the other day, is that, you know, you're working so much, you don't even realize you're working. That's when you know you're working hard, is that you don't think about it as work. It's just what you're doing. That's when you know you're grinding, because you're passionate about it. You're excited about it. And, you know, a lot of
somebody stops you and says, "Are you okay?" And you're like, "Oh, yeah."
Oh, yeah. Right?
Yeah,
you know,
maybe I do need to slow down for a second.
But it's like, you know, when you get in the gym, you're just vibing. That's what it is. And, you know, I think a lot of people, they think things just, you know, fall in your lap, right? And they don't. The reality of the situation is you got to get out there and you got to put in the hard work. And, you know, one of our most recent largest deals, right, the one that you've seen, came from a cold call, right?
Yeah.
And
how many employees are at that place? Like 20,000 or something? Like something
there's
insane.
30,000. Well, I'm talking about the conventional gym model.
Yeah.
That was off cold call, right?
Yeah.
And you know, that's going to be a huge account for us. Right. And all it took was for me just to pick up the phone and call, go door to door, right? And you know, people forget that you got to put in the hard work to get those big accounts.
What are you selling when you talk to these people?
I mean, well, it just different things. I mean, basically, you're selling yourself, right? Essentially, you're selling your vision. You're selling, you know, the theory that there's a way to do fitness better, and you want them to buy into your vision. And so, you know, for anybody, you know, listening, is they need to identify what their vision is, right? And then get a group of people to be about that vision, right? Whether it be selling slingshot or whatever it is, right? You got to have someone who's about it, and then you have a crew that's about that same vision. And then when you're passionate about it, other companies pick up on it.
Yeah, when this gym was started years and years ago, we've had so many people watch the videos, and video after video that pops up. Oh, I wish I had a place like that. And I'm always trying to tell people, like, hey man, just build it. Like, if you're excited, get a group of some people and just start powerlifting wherever you can.
Right.
And then you can worry about all the other details later. You can worry about like how to, you know, get your own spot or these other things, but like, you know, make sure there's like a little bit of a market for it first, get other people excited about it, and then look into maybe buying some of your own equipment, getting a gym, whatever.
And you just got to start. You know, oftentimes people talk. You just got to go. Right. And, you know, it's funny. There's a lot of people who have this sense of entitlement with different things you find.
It doesn't cost you any money for you to walk inside that building and talk to the guy about
That's
fitness.
Right. Doesn't talk to anybody, you know? And at the end of the day, you know, people love to talk about what they can do, but I just want to see them go out there and do it.
Yeah.
And when they go out there and do it, they might not do well. They might do well. But at least they know they went out there and did something different than just talking about it all the time.
Maybe that's something you like about CrossFit. There's literally nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
Right? Like one of those workouts is going to catch you.
Well, that's what I like about fitness in general, right? I mean, CrossFit in general, right? It's a humbling experience. That's what I like about Jiu Jitsu, right? Yeah. You show up on a mat and there's nowhere to hide, right? You're putting yourself out there. You're getting comfortable with uncomfortable, right? Because you're getting uncomfortable. There's no doubt about it, right? Whether you're, you know, CrossFitting or you're Jiu Jitsu, whatever. And I think there's something about that's really cool. You know, I competed in a Jiu Jitsu competition not that long ago, and the reason why I did it is just to get comfortable with uncomfortable, to put myself in a position where I felt like my back was up against the wall. And I think that only makes you stronger. And I think a lot of times, whether you're powerlifting, bodybuilding, or whatever, even CrossFit, right? You get so good at something, it becomes, you don't get that same like, oh shit factor, right? Whereas when you're sitting on a mat and you've never competed in jiu-jitsu and there's dudes who just want to rip your head off, that's the moment where you have an opportunity to either excel or be defeated. And I like that theory, right? I like the theory of kind of being up against it.
You're going to get tested by that adrenaline dump.
Yeah, you're going to get tested, and you're going to walk away. You're going to learn something about yourself. Either A, you pussed out, right? You got to, do better next time. Or B, you manned up, you did the best you could, and you had a good experience, and you move on. And that's the same theory in business. It's like, but people, they got to put themselves out there. And sometimes I think people are afraid of failing, and that's okay, right? But if you're always afraid of failing, you're never going to go out there and do anything. Like, again, back to the jiu-jitsu competition, I could have lost, right? Thankfully, I didn't, but I could have, surely, right? But at least I put myself out there, and I didn't have any regrets from doing it.
How long did you train for that?
Well, so I've been doing jiu-jitsu for about a year. So I'm a blue belt now. I was still a white belt when I competed.
saw you getting whipped.
Yeah.
What was that about?
That's like
initiation.
I didn't know anything about that stuff. So there's a whole new world about jiu-jitsu that I'm not very familiar with, right? But most of the time it takes about maybe 18 months to 2 years to get to your blue belt. I was fortunate enough to get a little bit earlier only because I competed and I won each, who knows, right? My instructor gave me a blue belt, which was great. And then the way I got it was, I guess it's typical, they just whip you with this belt.
He's got his shirt off. He's getting whipped on his back.
Man, I got my ass kicked,
like,
right?
Well, you walk through.
You walk through like a gauntlet.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it goes.
It sounds like a Klingon ceremony from Star Trek.
Yeah, man. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Is there some side of you, I mean, you know, sounds like you're charged by competition. Obviously, you're charged by winning. But is there a part of you that kind of likes getting your ass kicked a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason why I love CrossFit so much, right? Is that when you're down and you're laying on the floor and you're sweating, you got your ass kicked, there's something about that makes you feel like you're content. Something about that makes you feel like you put in the hard work and now you can just be at ease for a little bit, you know? And I, you know, yeah, I think at the end of the day, if you want to be successful in a lot of different things, you got to be okay with kind of getting your ass kicked.
Win some, lose some, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially like with Jiu Jitsu, I mean, that's one of the things I love about it is that, you know, I'm constantly, and I use the term constantly because it's constant, getting tapped out, you know? Right. And it's a unique sport like that because you get tapped out and that's a humbling experience to be getting choked, right? And then you got to tap. Right. And then you get let go and you're okay. And then you get back at it.
It's an interesting thing too, because you know that you made a mistake a while back that led to that.
Yeah.
You know, or sometimes the guy's just faster or there's a bunch of combinations of things, but a lot of times you fucked up somewhere.
Right.
And it led you to this moment and there's nothing you can do about it.
And you're getting defeated. And you know what? That's okay because then you tap and you do it again. And you do it again. You do it again. And no one progresses without getting tapped. I mean, everybody gets tapped. Yeah. Everybody.
And that's the real definition of the word humbling. You're humbled by adversity. People say, oh, you know, I was honored and humbled by whatever. No. It's only adversity that humbles you.
Right. Yeah, you need some of that.
Yeah, you do. They do. And it's good for you too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's good.
Were you surprised at, I mean, obviously, you know, your first try at doing something, other people are going to be a lot better. What were those first few weeks of jiu-jitsu like? I mean, you've been getting tapped left and right. And,
oh, man.
I've done some jiu-jitsu before, and there's a lot of weird, sneaky shit that people do that you're unaware of. I mean, they'll still stuff their knee into your dick, or they'll fucking put their knee on your rib cage or their elbow into, like, your inner thigh, and you're like, fuck, and then you get out of position because you're not paying attention because all you can focus in on all the pain.
That's right.
Or you kind of just...
you got
overwhelmed the first couple times you went in.
I mean, the thing about jiu-jitsu is, like, you know, you got to really take a step back in the beginning and just give it a couple of weeks to kind of at least let it sink in a little bit. Because in the beginning, it's super awkward, right? Here you are rolling around with a bunch of dudes, and sometimes there's girl, but in general, there's not that many women doing it. And even if there is, I think it's actually more awkward for me. Like, I generally don't do that because I don't know, I'm weird like that. But a bunch of dudes rolling around, and you're just trying to kill each other. And so the beginning, it takes a few days to kind of realize, like, okay, the vibes are good. Everybody's just trying to get better and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, it's just it's a sport that really requires you to stay mentally focused, like chess, and that's where you're trying to get caught. And you know, I get caught all the time because I roll with higher belts. But my goal then is I make micro goals, right? And everybody could do this in their life. So, like, for example, I'm rolling with the black belt. My goal is not to let them get me on X, right? They might get me on something else, but they sure as hell are not going to get me, you know, in a mount, right? As an example, right? And
you'll give up something else over that one thing.
Right. Yeah. And so now all of a sudden I get a win from that event, right? I get a win, you know, hypothetically, in my term, right? And that's kind of the way I look at it. And I look at that same way with CrossFit.
You're over there celebrating. The guy's like, I don't know what you're celebrating. I just tapped it out 4 times in a row.
No, I remember this one time.
Fuck you, I won.
Yeah, the
other
day I was rolling with a buddy of mine, and I just looked at him. I was like, hey, bro, so you only tapped me once? Like kind of give him a nod, like, yeah, I kicked your ass. But like, and then he just like, you know, because he knows exactly what I'm trying to say, right? Is that was a big win for me.
Well, also, too, probably intimidating for him because at that point he realized you're crazy. He's like, this guy's not firing all cylinders upstairs. This isn't good.
I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, with strength and conditioning, right? For those of your listeners who are, you know, getting stronger, getting fitter, it plays a huge role in martial arts and in combat in general. I mean, you do have to, obviously, technique is critical, right? But by being strong and fast and athletic, it benefits you very much so.
It can help you a lot.
Yeah, because you get 2-3 minutes into a round, and when that guy's gassed, it plays a huge advantage on you.
Yeah, for you almost, if you can be defensive, it's probably been a big advantage for you, having that CrossFit base.
Yeah, if you could hold some positions for a little bit, let them get tired out, and then it really opens the door.
First day, I bet some of the people were probably licking their chops because you're pretty jacked. They're probably like, we're going to fucking take this guy out, show this guy what's up.
Yeah, fortunately, I've been able to go to places where they kind of, I know them, they know me, kind of who I am, what's going on. And so I have this one guy, Jeremy, who whenever we roll at different places, he does a good job of like kind of prefacing to people like, hey man, like he's a blue belt. Like he kind of tells them what the story is, because if not, you'll feel someone's strength and they'll take that as you're trying to like be aggressive with them when it's really just you're a strong dude. You're just using your strength, but you don't know the skills behind it. So that's why you gotta be really careful like that, because if you roll into a new place, sometimes people just get the wrong impression.
That's interesting.
There's a lot of great fighters, you know, all around the whole country and now even the world. But California, NorCal in particular, is a hotbed for a lot of great jiu-jitsu and stuff. What gym do you train at?
Well, I train at two. I train mainly at Heroes, which is down in downtown San Jose, and another place called Samurai, which is in Campbell. I try and do it 2-3 days a week. Try and get in, get out, but you know sometimes the schedule doesn't allow, especially when I'm traveling. But you know, I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of really cool people, and it's a great sport. It's just one more piece to what I do, but I like the fact that I can have fun with it. I could get outside my comfort zone. I could mentally kind of recharge because I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just kind of thinking about someone trying to kill me. And then that's what I like about it.
Is it maybe nice to step outside of a CrossFit gym? Because I'm sure when you're inside of a CrossFit gym, you probably get a lot of questions asked, especially if you're inside your own gym. Somebody might pull you aside for business stuff. So is it nice to step out of that environment? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I'm in our gyms every day, right? Every day I'm in our gyms at some facet in one of them, right? Because I'm always around them. And so it is nice to get outside our gyms, not be the subject material expert, and just be the student, right? It is nice to be that, right? And so I take our classes all the time. Yesterday I took a class at one of our gyms. I took another one the day before. I take classes at our gyms just like any other paying client because I want to know their experience that they're receiving, right? But at the end of the day, I'm still a subject material expert in it. And so, you know, there's a lot of questions, a lot of different things. It's nice to get outside that scope.
So we know, you know, a lot of the story with your daughter. How do you work out some of the dynamic with your son? Because I'm sure a lot of energy and a lot of time and a lot of resources get spent on working on, she has leukemia, correct?
Yep.
And so a lot of time is poured into that. How do you and your wife make your son feel special, and how do you, you know, make time for him as well?
That's a good question. I mean, you know, frankly, you know, talk about priorities, talk about focus. We've probably been more focused on Ava than Caden, right? I mean, just to be honest, because we've had to. But it's been nice because he's been able to spend some really good quality time with my mom and dad. And so he's gotten a lot of one-on-one attention with my mom and dad.
Yeah, grandma and grandpa.
Yeah, grandma and grandpa. When he's with me, we do a really good job. Like I took him to gymnastics yesterday. We like to play outside in the dirt and stuff, and we try and focus on that. But, you know, Ava does take up a lot of our attention and a lot of our focus because, I mean, you know, we're in the hospital with her probably, you know, we're in the ER with her probably once every 10 days, right? So, I mean, when we go to the ER, you know, someone's got to pick up our son. We got to do this. We got to do that. And then we're in there and it's you know, just things escalate very quick. The reason why Ava takes up a lot of our attention is because things escalate extremely quickly with her. So if she gets a temperature, it escalates from 0 to 100 very quickly. With Caden, it's not that same thing. So
yeah, even if she just gets a cough or a cold,
it's very
a huge deal.
Huge deal. And so, yeah, it's something we're working on. You know, my wife and I had a nice conversation today about how we want to work on it because, you know, we're trying to set ourselves up where, you know, we're just being real about our problems, right? And I think that's something that I've learned over this last year and a half is just to be real about the problems that we're facing. You know, like it's going to be stressful. My wife and I, we have a child with leukemia. It's going to be stressful on our family, but just be real about it and try and set up certain things I think is helpful.
How's Ava doing?
She's doing okay. Yeah. You know, I'd like to say she's doing great, but she's not. But I think at this point I could confidently say that I'm not necessarily, I know she'll be cured. But we're just trying to be concerned about quality of life right now. Whereas the last time we spoke, you know, I think we were still in a better position, but you know, there's a lot of phases. Now we're in the final phase. We have one more year left of treatment, but it's a lot of medicine. And I want her quality of life to be, you know, as good as possible. And that's where we're focused on right now.
Is that the worst of it? The uncertainty?
Yeah. The worst of it is really like, you know, the other night, it was like Thursday night or something. We were just hanging out, or Wednesday night. We were just hanging out, having dinner. We had Chris Henshaw and Tia Toomey were there. They were just at our house. We were just having dinner. Everything was good. Ava's running around. It's all good. Then all of a sudden, boom, she spikes a fever, and we're in the hospital for 3 days, you know, because her blood counts came back low. She was neutropenic, and therefore she's so susceptible that, you know, and so that's the hardest thing for my wife and I, is that it's so like a roller coaster, right? Is that, you know, we were in Mexico not that long ago, just my wife and I went down there for 2 days, and she had to go into the ER. And so we took an earlier flight back, and we you know, so that's.
A good friend of mine has a son who he's like, I guess 9, has Ewing sarcoma. And, you know, I watch that like every day. I mean, hear about it all the time. I hear about all the doctor's appointments and stuff, and see all of what they go through. And I mean, his kid is relentlessly positive. He's just like super optimistic all the time. And dad is like, you know, I know anything can happen. And that's such a hard position for parents, man. I feel for everybody who's.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately for us, we feel like, you know, some things can happen where we have to go to the ER and this and that, but there's always a solution. Yeah. Some families aren't in that position. So, you know, Ash and I need to pinch ourselves every now and then, just remember that there's families who are in the similar situation, but they aren't as positive, right? Yeah. We know it's going to be all good. We just got some challenging times. You know?
The message that you shared at the fundraiser was fucking awesome for me to hear. You know, you basically kind of painted the picture of the first time you found out she had leukemia, and you talked about, you know, the doctor delivered the message to you first, and you just, like, you almost fell to the ground, crying. Obviously, tons of that's going to happen, right? And then you went over to your wife, and I guess you didn't even really say much, but she kind of knew what the deal was.
Right.
And I find it amazing that she had the strength to say, hey, you know what? If we're going to cry, we're only going to cry right here.
Right.
Yeah. Once we walk through those fucking doors, no more crying. Anybody needs to cry, this is the spot.
Right.
And I really like that a lot, because it sounded to me almost like a pregame football speech.
Oh, no, it totally was.
Like, we're going to take this energy that's negative and that's making us fucking sad.
Right.
And we're going to turn it into something useful. Like, this is the spot to be sad, and this is the spot to show that we're here for support,
I'll never forget. She looks straight at me. She's like, hey, I want you to go tell all of our families. They want to cry, they can go cry over there. Like, super, like, in my face. Like, they can go cry over there. They walk in these doors, there's no more fucking crying. I'm just like, okay, all right, let's do this. You know, like,
what a powerful message, especially from a woman. You know, gathering up that kind of strength. You know, a mom, the bond with the child is so special, and that's remarkable that she had the strength to be able to do that.
Yeah, because it sets the tone, right? I mean, if they see that mom and dad are crying all the time, that kind of, you know,
right,
you gotta set the tone appropriately.
How do you help her deal with it just on a daily basis? I mean, it's got to be a struggle on a daily basis. Does she sometimes just get like bummed that she's not, you know, quote unquote normal?
Yeah, it's been tough. Last 48 hours has been real tough for her. She's on heavy steroids right now, and she's highly emotional, and she says some things that are really rude, or not rude. She says some things that are really hurtful, and it's super sad for my wife and I. Super, super sad. But we just got to remember that it's a phase. She'll get through this, and we're doing all we can. You know, we're looking at counseling. We're looking at different things to try and put us in the best position for success, because that's all we can do is just sit, listen, reaffirm that she's not what she's thinking. You know, there's just a lot of negative thoughts that go in your head through these steroids and these hormones, and we're trying to get rid of them.
Nothing changes your mood worse than pain. You know, and we forget that. You kind of think, oh, why is Grandpa so and so, you know, acting like a dick? You know, well, he's had arthritis for 10 years. You know, he's got whatever, right? Like, pain is really something. I mean, you know, from doing CrossFit workouts, sometimes you have a pain somewhere that makes you so frustrated. Just makes you feel like just slamming your head through the wall.
Yeah, especially with these steroids and all the chemotherapy. You know, like that movie that came out with about like the different. I'm trying to remember what it's called. But there was like a sadness and a happy and a Inside Out.
Inside Out. Yeah.
Yeah. The last 5 days, she's been sadness. Like, that's just been her. No matter what we do, she's just gonna be sadness. That's just the way it is. And it's so crazy because of how they take over her body. And we just need to be supportive, because, you know, we just need to be supportive.
Is it hard to distinguish what's happening because she's 5 and what's happening because she has leukemia? Sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes. But mainly it's the steroids. When she's on those, it's bad. And that's 5 days a month. But she takes a ton of medicine. So you never know what that medicine's going to do for her, you know?
Right.
I mean.
And it's not like you have any choice about it.
No. I mean, right now we don't. I mean, there's just.
How do you make some of those decisions? It must be really complicated when they tell you, hey, like, here's what we're going to try to do for her. How do you make those? You're just trying to make the best possible decision you can, or
there's no decision making for us. The path has been set, and the path is non-negotiable. I mean, that's the way they say it, right?
Right.
Obviously, like, there's certain families that don't adhere to the path. We've chosen to administer the path as clearly stated by the path has been determined over the last X amount of years that if we follow this path, it's 90% successful in curing the leukemia. Right now, is there other side effects? Sure, we can talk about those later. But right now, that's the path we're on.
So you guys have bought into that system basically, and just do you argue it at all? Do you? I mean, you get frustrated with it.
We're trying to pull back a little bit in certain areas like the steroid, just a little bit. But for the most part, I mean, it's a nationally recognized protocol for ALL, for pediatric cancer. It's nationally recognized globally, actually. And at this point, this is the protocol, and it was created over years of trying different things. And like, for example, the difference between her not taking, for example, one of her chemos is methotrexate, as an example, right? If you don't take the methotrexate, once a week for the 15 months in maintenance, your likelihood of relapsing is 20% higher than someone that did, as an example. I mean, and that was just hypothetical, but the point I'm trying to make is that they have it all statistically written out that if you don't hit these certain things, that's why a lot of teenagers, they relapse. Because what happens is they start feeling good. Every time they take the chemo, they don't feel good. So they choose not to take the 6-MP, which is another type of chemotherapy. They choose not to take it, but boom, they relapse again. And so for us, we're sticking to the plan because we know that if, 5 years from now, there's any other additional side effects, that by then the science will be even better and we'll be able to fix it. But if she relapses again, that means bone marrow transplant, which isn't a good thing.
How does your son deal with it?
I mean, he's
only like
he's 3.
3.
Yeah. He's pretty good about it. He just knows that, Ava's sick and that we go to the hospital a lot.
The basics of it.
He knows the basics, and he doesn't mess with her. Like
wrestling other kids or whatever. Yeah, he doesn't get into that with her.
Well, it's so funny because I think he's learning at an early age. Like he wrestles with me. We punt, we're pretty aggressive. But it's like with Sissy, with his sister.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like you guys could play fight or whatever, but like, it's almost like a double standard. Like she pushes him and like, it's like, okay. He pushes her. No. Like, so it's kind of like this, complete double standard, but he's also learning at an early age. Like, you don't, I mean, it's just like, hey, women run the world. You don't push them. Like, just sit back and you're over there, buddy.
And give respect to him and don't say anything. You might get punched in the face.
That's right. That's right. You respect you respect women, and that's just the way it goes.
Right. Tell us about your foundation a little bit. Tell us about the dinner I went to and some of that stuff.
Yeah, that's so you came into a dinner that benefited NIGU, which is Never Ever Give Up. We're a big fan of it. If people want to get behind an organization, I believe in them. We've raised quite a bit of money for them so far, and what we're doing is we're trying to create memories for families. We're super blessed that when Ava's having a tough week, like for example, this has been a tough week for us. We're probably going to go stay at a hotel this weekend and give her some good memories. That's what we're going to do.
Bring her to Super Training Gym.
Right? Yeah. I actually asked her if she wanted to come here today.
See, I told you.
And so, that's what this group is about, is that we raise the funds so we can go ahead and help other people out, create memories for people who may not have that long with their children. And so, NIGU is a great organization. There's others out there as well. But right now we're focused on NIGU and we're focused on what they're doing. It's not our organization, but they have a set aside fund for us. Gotcha. Where like, hey, all your money goes into this fund. That's your allocation, and you can do whatever you want with it. For example, we're starting yoga at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, and that will be funded by some of the money that we raise.
Oh, nice.
Because we're going to do, we've already got approvals. It took us like a year, but we're going to start offering yoga for inpatient people, which is cool.
That's great. That's the problem of being in a hospital long term. Like, not if you're even not the sick person, it's so depressing. You feel like you're in jail after a while.
That's right. And so what we're trying to do for the families is give them the ability to get out even for an hour twice a week and just do some yoga. Right? They can bring their phone if they need to get called. That's no problem. Go ahead and run back to your room. All good. But I want to give them this outlet because for me, when I was in the hospital for 5 weeks with Ava, I used like this conference room. I did like body weight workouts, but most people don't think to do that, right? So if we can give them some guidance and some yoga is nice because you don't come back all sweaty, right? Yoga is nice because you can come back recharged and rejuvenated, but not, too crazy.
You lose structure too when you're in that environment. It's all day, every day. There could be a crisis at any time, and you just completely lose your structure, and that's how people get depressed if you think about it.
That's right. And so it's just the beginning. I really think this program is going to be very successful.
That's awesome.
Finally got approval.
Has your wife been able to find time for herself?
Yeah, she has. Yeah, she has. I think the event she did was super great for her because it gave her purpose and direction. And now we're focused on our next one that we're doing. So we're doing we'll be doing a big event for Summer Scamper, which is over here for Lucia Packard, and then we'll be doing our next annual blood drive. So if anybody wants to be a part of that, I don't know how they want to email in, but let us know. In September of this year, we'll be hosting our second annual blood drive, and we had 76 locations do it last year, and I'm looking for over 100 this year. You know, the blood drive is, you know, blood and it is such an important thing, and people don't need to donate money; they could just donate blood.
Has your wife been involved in the business?
Not so much. Not so much. She was early on, but now not as much. Yeah, she kind of takes care of the kids, does her thing, and we kind of focus on the business.
And the main thing with the organization, just back to that for a second, is care and not necessarily cure.
Yeah.
Correct?
On that particular case, like NIGU is all about care and not cure. You know, the founder's daughter is found after a woman named Jessie Reese, who passed away from a brain tumor. And she
gave a speech at the...
Yeah, so Eric Reese gave the speech. His daughter was Jessie Reese.
Hard.
Yeah,
it's
tough.
Dry eye in the
yeah.
room. It was brutal.
You know, he just goes up there and he's like, "Hey guys, like, you think I want to be here with you today? I don't want to be here with you today."
He's like, "This fucking sucks. I don't want to be here. I want my daughter back." And you're just like, "Okay."
Yeah. It's like, what do you say to that?
Just fucking shoot me.
You can't say anything.
You don't say anything to him, right? He's just like, "Look, I want to be put out of business. I want to be put out of business. Find a way to put me out of business. But for now, there's tons of kids that need help, and let's provide it to them." And when you hear him say it, you're just like, "I'm on board."
Yeah.
What are you supposed to say?
Yeah. No, that was a great message. It really was. What would you say to people out there who are just struggling with a kid that's sick in any way, whether it's mental health or cancer or anything? What do you think has been the key for you guys, you know, coming together and trying your best to solve this issue?
Yeah, I think just being humbled in a sense, you got to ask for help sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And be okay to rely on other people. They want to help, and you just need to ask for it, because if they don't know you need it, then you can't live in a box. You got to be out there letting people know, "Hey, look, we're having a really struggling day today. I need to go see a counselor. I need my mom and dad to help," etc. Right? I think just asking for help goes a long way, and people want to give it. You know, my sister the other day had a baby. Her wife had a baby, and you know, she needed to have a ride to go get this epidural in her back, and I'm like, absolutely, but I needed her to feel comfortable to ask me, because I want to help, right? People want to support. They just need to know. And I think sometimes we want to be so prideful, we don't want to ask. But it's like, dude, for generations and years, people have been utilizing each other to support this system. But now we've become so just antisocial about it, right? We need more. I think that's the big takeaway, is just, if you need help, ask for it, because there is going to be someone out there who wants to give it. And you know what? When the time comes that they need help, they're going to ask you for it. And that's what life is all about. You know, like, life's all about, all of us are going to have our ups and downs, right? Mark might need something later on. And it's not about like taking from different people. It's just about, you know, supporting when friends need help, right? And like, for example, Mark coming out to our charity event, that was a big deal for us. I asked him one time, I was like, "Hey man, we're doing this event." Boom, he shows up and he makes a large contribution. We didn't ask him for anything. But the fact that he said he was going to show up and he did show up was really, really cool and meant a lot. And I think that just goes to show that, like, he's willing to help out when we need help, and vice versa.
What's circling back to business? What's something that you've learned, something major that you've learned that's had a big impact on your business in the last 2-3 years?
That just to stay current, just to keep pivoting and stay current. You know, I think if whatever worked for you 5 years ago is probably not going to keep working for you. And
kind of like the same thing about, like, what got you to a 500-pound deadlift might not be the same thing to get you a 600-pound deadlift.
That's right. Yeah, you might need to use bands, right?
Right.
It's the same lift, but different distraction or different whatever, right?
Application,
application. And I think that's the same thing about business. You know, like, we traditionally started in the CrossFit industry, and CrossFit industry has changed a lot over the years. And for us to grow at the capacity we need to create jobs for as many people as we can, and to create a sustainable future for ourselves, we need to pivot and stay current. And if you're not humble enough to realize, or not necessarily humble, if you're not aware enough to realize that all of us are in the fitness industry, the fitness industry shifts and changes, and we need to be aware of that. That's the key, in my opinion.
How do you stay current? There's a lot of shit going on.
I think the biggest thing is just allocating a couple hours a week to get current, right? Talking to people like you. Hey, what did you see this weekend at the Arnold? My buddy's going to URSA tomorrow, right? The URSA convention, right? Hey, what did you see going on at that health club meeting, right? What are the trends? What do you see, right?
Yeah, what's
so
coming?
This way you start thinking about it and then creating your game plan, right? Because if you start seeing, like, if you own a CrossFit affiliate right now, it is a 100% fact that attrition and growth in the United States is a problem right now. It's just a fact, right? And that's fine, right? Because it had this massive upswing, it leveled out, and now you're going to start to see some of those falling off. And that's just the way business goes, right? But if you're not aware of that, if you don't even think that's even like out there, that's a problem, because that's a overarching thing that you need to realize to pivot your business.
We have our ear to the street at all times, and it's because of that guy over there, Charlie Z.
Yeah, buddy. Picking up Charlie was a good idea for you guys.
Hell yeah. Anything else you want to plug on your way out here? Where can people find you? That kind of stuff.
I mean, basically just my Instagram, Jason Khalipa. That's where I do most of my stuff. We have a Box of Business Instagram. That's kind of cool. We just put up, random business stuff. We put up some workouts on Imam of the Day. That's a very fun, most people would say is a complete distraction for me. We do that every now and then. I just put up a little Imam when I do a workout, throw it up there.
How can people get involved in the blood drive?
Yeah, so for the blood drive, I think if you just want to email info@nc.fit, let us know if you have a location. Hosting a blood drive is it's a little bit of work, right? Because you have to have a blood bank come out, or you have to have a blood bank come out and set up stuff. But I think for your members and for your community, it's something so much different than your typical, like, oh, come in and get a workout in, or oh, come and lift. It's like, no, this is blood drive. It's more low key. You get a chance to connect each other. Eat a donut when you're done. It's great.
Workout before the blood drive or after?
Yeah, there's no workout. Maybe after. Yeah,
you don't want to pick people up off the floor.
That's right.
All right, guys. I think that's our favorite guest. I'll just say
yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, Stan.
Whoa! I earned
favorite guest. Yeah.
Oh man,
no, it's true.
Third time's the charm.
Or at least the guest of the year. It's early in 2017.
I don't know. I have a feeling this might be episode 200. However.
Yeah, there we go. Episode 200.
Which one? What episode are you on right now?
190 goes up to tomorrow.
We're not sure where we're at, to be honest.
And they're 8 in the can. So with a little padding, you're probably 200.
All right. Well, hey, it's always great coming out here. I'm glad I drove out here to see you guys. It's always good to connect. And like I said, for those of you who don't know Mark, I mean, I think you know Mark because you listen to the podcast, you get to see him on YouTube and all these different things. But what you see is what you get. You get a good dude. Has a good heart, and I couldn't have seen that more than when I only told you one time. Like, I know this goes so long, but it's just, my wife and I are doing this charity event. Okay, I'll be there. And you know how many people just say that to you, kind of like, I'll be there. It's like, okay, but they're not actually going to be there. They're just saying that because they don't want to make it awkward, right? And Mark actually was there, and that was really cool. And actually, everybody who said they were going to be there was there. Like, it was cool to see how like our friends and family really gathered together as to be about something. I was talking to Mark
in a motherfucking tuxedo.
You did, and you look good, man.
I was serious that day.
But to summarize something, like, everybody that's listening should be about something, right? They should just be about it. And Tate Fletcher says the best. He's like, just be about some shit, And it's like, what are you about?
Love that guy.
And yeah, he's great, right? And for us, like, we're about something bigger than ourselves, which is helping others through this battle, because we've been blessed in so many ways. And I think we have an obligation to go out there and support other people because of all the networks we have and different types of stuff. And Mark's a good example of
I feel like I'm in a good spot, like if something feels good to me, let's go do it.
That's right.
You asked me about the seminar, like, God, that seems like a great experience. That seems like a lot of fun. Let's get a couple people and go up there and
do it.
Teach and coach and have some fun. I met a lot of great people that day. People were fired up. They were excited to learn about powerlifting, and any opportunity I have to help out a friend or something, it's, look, it always comes back to you, right? Like, it's like a boomerang. You don't have to throw it hard for it to come back every single time. You don't have to put a lot of effort into the whole thing, but just, if you have somebody that's a friend, you have somebody that's close to you, why not fucking help them out? It didn't really cost me anything necessarily just to show up to some of these things. And I just think that a lot of people aren't always viewing things that way. For me, it's taken a couple of years because you put so much time into yourself. I'm sure you fell into this pitfall a little bit yourself. You put so much time into yourself that you kind of forget how valuable everybody around you is. You got to pump the brakes, and you're like, wait a second here. The people that are in my circle, my family first, obviously, and then my friends, people that have stuck by my side for years and years. You lose sight of it sometimes. You take advantage, right? Like, it just happens,
right?
But you pump the brakes and you say, oh shit, well, I can fix some of these things. Let me. When I have opportunities to do good by a friend, I'm going to try my best to do the best I can.
It's all a beautiful circle. I think sometimes others get intimidated by it. We were talking about this earlier. You can't get intimidated by other people's abilities. you want to align with them and then elevate everybody. Everybody wants to elevate everybody. Like, nothing, I learned at a really young age. I worked the front desk when I was 14 at a conventional gym, and the owner of the gym, I never forgot it. He would sit there with these wads of cash on his desk every now and then. And I just looked at him like the baller, He drove a Range Rover. I'm like, yeah. Wore nice watches. Like, I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to be. And I'll never forget, one day he looks at me, he's like, hey, Jason, just remember one thing. It's never fun being rich unless your friends also have money too, right? Because you can't go out there and do things, right? Like if your friends, and he used the term rich, but what I mean by that is like, if your friends don't have the quality of life that you do, it's never that much fun because now you're watching these other people that you care about who are having a challenging time. And so it's better, especially in a company setting, let's all elevate each other, right? Mark elevates Charlie, and it's just this beautiful ecosystem where everybody rises up. And I think that for so long, people think about like suppressing other people around them because they want to be the kind of like the guy, right? But actually by elevating other people around you, it only elevates you even more. And that's something that I think we do okay at, but we could even do better at in our business in particular. I think we could do better.
I forgot to ask you, who's your mentor?
We got a few, Paul Gomez with Progenics. He co-founded Hurley. He's really helped me on the marketing side, really helped me understand branding and marketing. And, a few others from Western Digital, gentlemen named Mike and Jerry, both of them have taught me a little bit about the corporate side of the house, kind of taught me about how business. How
much does that blow your mind? How much stuff they know about business?
Oh, man.
It'd be like asking you about CrossFit, right? Like, you can just go on forever, right?
Well, one of my buddies, he runs a $100 billion business, $100 billion business. Yeah. So when I sit there and ask him about stuff, he thinks like 20 steps ahead of me, right? And so I'm sitting there, I'm picking his brain on these things. And I never forget this guy flew me out to Dubai and he wanted to open up like 30 gyms with me. And I come back and I'm sitting there and I'm pitching the deal to this guy, Mike. I'm like, hey man, what do you think about this? And he looks at me, he's like, I will give you double the amount of money they gave you right now. And I'll do it with you here in the United States instead of going all the way over to Dubai. And it was right there. I remembered. And the point he was trying to make by that was that the deal was too good for them. Right? Like the deal was too good for them and I need to take a step back. And it was only through me talking to these people that I've learned some things. And I've had other mentors really, from back in the day, learning how to sell from this gentleman named Min and Joe and all these others. But at the end of the day, I think my mentors are, a lot of people I run into, right? Like I pick up stuff from you. I'll pick up stuff from a lot of people just because I want to rob and steal whatever I can to try and elevate the game,
Absolutely. That's the way it is.
You got to be open to it though.
Yeah.
If you're not open to it, you're never going to get there.
What about like your mom and dad?
Oh yeah. My mom and dad, good people, like my dad came from Iran when he was 18. Interesting story. My mom lost her dad when she was a really young age and they both defined that, right? Like they, my mom and dad have taught me a lot about just family care and just, always having your family's back, right? Like when push comes to shove, your friends will be good, but your family will always be there. And that's an important lesson I learned, especially with Ava getting sick. that night that she got sick, I just remember my mom, she was crying. She's like, hey, look, I'm going to take Kaden. Don't worry about him. You take care of Ava. And it was like, the way it all went down, it was like the family's never felt tighter than it does today.
Right.
And I think that's what they've taught me. And I've also seen on my wife's side, right? Strong family, where her dad also came from Iran, came with nothing, and they worked hard. And, my grandma and grandpa from Iran, they came here and they used to be rich in Iran. And during the revolution, they came here and they started with nothing. And they started a dry cleaning business. And when you look at some of these stories, that is what America, like it's about hard work, it's about dedication, it's about grind. It's not about finding a new company, having them IPO, and then 2 years later switching to a new one, right? Mm-hmm. That's far off, right? It's probably not going to happen. But what will happen is you can start a dry cleaning business, hustle your ass off, and provide yourself a living. And that's some of the stuff that I've learned. But I'm so inspired by my mom and dad, and even my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, all of them.
Seeing them lead by example must have been
they just lead from the front. Like there's no, especially with Ava getting sick, it's non-negotiable. It's like, Mom, I need this. Like we went to the hospital, boom, off work, whatever you need. Like it's just that's why I think when you have children, you got to be around family because it's just so important.
Oh yeah. You need, like, I moved my parents right next door to me.
Right.
For that very reason.
You got to have it.
Yeah.
And you never realize until you get older, right? Like I'm not very old, but at my age, I've learned so much that family could not be more important. I've learned that mainly because of through the Ava situation and different stuff, but
we've talked about on this show before where you end up saying the stupid shit that your parents said to you and you're like, oh my God, my mom and dad said the same thing to me. Like,
Right.
There's a reason why they were saying that all those years.
That's right. That's right. 100%.
There was some fundamental truth in there that just wasn't obvious to you when you were younger.
That's right. You know, when you're young, you don't realize it. And then as you get older, and then you start thinking about, man, so like, for example, I'm 31, right? And I think like my great uncle is 92 years old or whatever. When he speaks, he's speaking with so much knowledge from so many years that like, because I think like I know a lot more today than I did 10 years ago, right? And you guys probably do too. But then you think, man, if you double our lifespan, imagine the amount of content your brain has delivered.
Yeah.
And that's how you can speak. And so
He's
like
nearly triple your age.
you could just triple it. That's right. And it's just crazy when you think about that and how, you know, I think I know a lot now. I think I know something now. Imagine what I think I'm going to know, you know, 10 years from now, as long as you keep absorbing, right? And growing and doing better.
There you go, guys. That's Jason Khalipa. Multiply your hustle, multiply your muscle, and may all your shits be tapered. I'm at Mark Smellybell on Instagram and Twitter. He laughs every time I say that.
I know, every time.
Shout out to our sponsors, 8Man Strong Apparel at 8manstrong.com, bodybuilding.com for all your supplement needs, Compex USA for cutting-edge muscle stim machines. Increase your bench press at howmuchyobench.net. Power, the only strength magazine
Off the team.
available in digital and print at thepowermagazine.com. Movement Watches, go to MVMTWatches.com/PowerCast for 15% off your entire order plus free shipping. And Rapid Reboot, go to rapidreboot.com/PowerCast for 10% off your entire order. I'm the Jim McD on all the social medias where I'd want you to find me. Follow the show on Instagram. We are at Mark Bell's PowerCast. We are
Kick them off the team. Look at that.
Don't forget our Compex giveaway contest on Instagram, where we are at Mark Bell's PowerCast. We'll see you next week with the Texas Rattlesnake himself, Mr. Stone Cold Steve Austin. And if you are still listening, thanks for listening.